Hello, Browse. We're back with Cawdor by Robinson Jeffers. We are on section 5, page 32. There was a little acre in Cawdor's canyon against the creek used for garden because they could water it in summer through a wood flume, but now the scour devoured it, and after Cawdor had ditched the barns against the shoreless flood running from the hill, in the afternoon he turned to save this acre. He drove piling to stay the embankment. Hood pointed the beams, and Cawdor drove them with the great sledgehammer, standing to his knees in the stream. Then fair Cawdor came down the bank without a cloak, her hair streaming the rain, and stood among the brown leafless and lavender shoots of willow. "Oh, come to the house, Hood." She struck her hands together. "My father is conscious. He wants to speak to Hood, wants Hood," who, wondering, gave the axe to his brother and went up. They came to the room off the short hallway. He heard through the shut door before they reached it the old man's breathing, like nothing he'd ever heard in his life, slime in a pit bubbling, but the machine rhythm intense and faultless. She entered ahead and drew a cloth over the wrinkled eye pits. The bad scars in the beard and the open mouth were not covered. "Ah, shut the door," she said, against the wind on the stairway. He came reluctantly into the dreadful rhythm of the room and said, "When was he conscious? He is not now. And Farah, he is in a dream, but I am in a dream. Between blackness and fire, my mind is never gathered, and all the years of thoughtful wonder and little choices are gone. He is on the shore of what nobody knows, but I am on that shore. It is lonely. I was the one that needed you. Does he feel anything? He thought, this breathing machine. Why, no, Farah." "It is only because I am old," she said, wringing her hands violently, trembling. "The cold rainwater rains down from my hair. I hated my loose mother, but this old man was always gentle and good, even in drunkenness. Lately I had true delight in doing things for him. The feeding, cleaning, we traveled so far together. So many faces of pain, but now he has flown away. Where is it?" She mastered her shuddering and said, "All that I loved is here dying, and now if you should ask me to, I would strike his face while he lies dying." But he, bewildered in the ice-colored wind of her eyes, stood foolish without an answer, and heard her. "Do you understand?" He felt the wind tempered. It fell in tears. He saw them running by the racked mouth. She ceased then to be monstrous and became pitiful. Her power that had held him captive ceased also, and now he was meanly afraid of what she might do. He went through the house and found Michael, and brought her up to the room. Then Farah lifted her face from the bed and stood and answered, "Come, Michael, this is the place. Come and look down and despise us. Oh, we don't mind. You're kind. I am wicked, perhaps, to think that he is repulsive as well as pitiful to you. You hunter with a rifle, one shot's mercy in the life. But the common hunter of the world uses too many, wounds and not kills, and drives you limping and bleeding, years after years, down to this pit." One hope after another cracked in his hands. The school he had, then the newspaper, he labored day and night to build up over in the valley. His wife, my shameful mother, abandoned him. He took whiskey for a friend. It turned a devil. He took the farm up here, hunted at last to the mountain, and nothing grew. No rain fell. The cows died before the fire came. Then it took his eyes, and now it is taking his life. Now it has taken me, too, that had been faithful a while. For I have to tell you, dear, dear Michael, before he dies, I love you, and Hood for your sake. Michael, more than I do this poor old man. He lies abandoned." She stood above him, her thin, wet clothing in little folds glued to the flesh, like one of the girls in a Greek frieze. The air of their motion molds lean in marble. Michael saw her through mist in the eyes and thought how lovely she was, and dimly heard her saying, "Do you not wish you were like this man, Hood?" I wish I were like this man. He has only one thing left to do. It is great and maybe dreadful to die, but nothing's easier. He does it asleep. Perhaps we are like this man. We have only one thing left to do, Hood. One burning thing under the sun. I love you so much, Michael, that you will surely forgive whatever it is. You'll know it is not done wickedly, but only from bitter need, from bitter need. She saw him frowning, and Michael's wonder, and cried quickly, "You needn't pity him, for even in this deformity and shame of obscure death, he is much more fortunate than any king of fat steers, under the bone behind the burnt eyes." There have been lightnings you never dreamed of, despairs and exultations and hawk agonies of sight that would have cindered your eyes before the fire came. Now leave me with him. If I were able, I would take him up, groaning to death, to the great rock, over your cramped cellar of a canyon, to flame his bitter soul away like a shot eagle in the streaming sky. I talk foolishly, Michael. I talk foolishly. Michael, you mustn't come back until he has died. Death's dreadful. You're still a child. Stay, Hood. But he would not. He heard in the evening the new farmhand talking with Concha Rosas, his Alp Italian accent against her Spanish Indian like pebbles into thick water. This country you cannot trust. It never need any people. My old country at home, she is not so kind, but always she need people. She never kill all. She is our mother, can't live without us. This one not care. It make you fat and soon it cutting your neck. Concha answered inaudibly, and the other, you Indian. Not either you. I have read, you come from Asia. You come from Asia, us from Europa. No one from here. Beautiful Madringa country. She care for Indian, no more nor white nor black. How have she helped you? Their talk knotted itself on miscomprehension until Matringda shaped into Madrastra. Beautiful stepmother country. Hood ceased to hear them. Why, so she was. He saw, as if in a vision, the gray flame of her eyes like windows open to a shining sky the north wind sweeps, and wind and light strain from the windows. What wickedness in the fabric was driving her mad with blinding her to old men? He went to the door to look at the black sky. He'd leave the house tonight, but pity and the rain held him. He heard the eaves gutter in their puddles and rush of rivulets washing the dark. While he was there, she came from the stair and whispered, for they were alone in the dark room, the others in the lamp-lit room at the table. If I were hurt in the hills, dying without help, you'd not sneak off and leave me. Oh, nobody could do that. Pull the door to on that black freedom. Perhaps my father will die this drowning night, but can't you see that I am a prisoner until he does? The wrists tied, the ankles. I can neither hold nor follow. No, we have to let them take their time dying. Why, even on Cawdor's, on your father's account, it would be wicked to call despair in here before it must come. I might do strangely if I were driven. You'll promise. Put your hand here. She caught it and held it under the small breast against the one dry thinness of cloth. She had changed then. He felt it thudding. I am being tortured, you know. He shook and said, until he dies, I'll not go. Dear child, then you'll be quieter. When you said child, your voice, she answered, was as hard as your father's. Hood, listen. All afternoon I have been making a dream. You know, my two white horses. They are like twins. They mustn't be parted. One for you, one for me. We rode together in the dream. Far off in the deep world, no one could find us. We leaned and kissed. He thrust her off with violent fear and felt her throat sob in his hand, the hot, slender reed of that voice of hers, the drumming arteries, each side, the reed flute. She went crouching and still to the stair. He stood in the dark morning, his violence. But she had gone up into the snoring rhythm, neither day nor night changed. Cawdor had asked her whom she would have to watch with her all night. For you must sleep a little. She had chosen Concha Rosas, and that was strange. He thought she had always hated Concha. He came at the end of evening and brought the brown, fat, silent woman. Then Farah looked up, not rising from the chair by the bed, and said with a difficult smile over the waves of noise, I was thinking of a thing that worried my father in the old days. He made a bargain with a man to pasture his horse. The horse died the first week. The man came asking pay for a year's pasture for a dead horse. My father paid it. At last. I wouldn't have paid it. No, hardly, he answered. And Farah, the bargain ends when the man dies, when the horse dies. She looked at her dying father and said, shuddering, I'm sorry to keep you up all night, Concha, but you can sleep in your chair. He was always a generous fool. He wasn't made for this world. Cawdor looked down at the bed through the dull noise like surf on a pebble shore and said that he'd been out to look at the bridge. It was still standing. The rain would break tonight. The doctor would come tomorrow. That would be late if there were hope, she answered. No matter. Dear child, he said hoarsely, we all die. Those that have blood in us. When you said child, your voice, she answered, was as hard as flint. We know that you and the rock over the canyon will not die on our time. When they were little children, were you ever kind? Am I not now? Oh, kind, she leaned sideways and smoothed the coverlet on the bed, but rather as a little hawk slips sidelong from its flapping vantage in the eye of the wind to a new field. But about blood in the stone veins, could Concha tell me? Look, his face now, Concha. Pure rock, a flick, and it shows. Oh, she said and stood up. Forgive me, for I am half mad with watching him die like an old steer, the butcher forgot. It makes me mad at your strength. He had none, but his mind had shining wings. They were soon broken. When Cawdor went out, she said to Concha, it is growing cold. Wrap yourself in the blanket before you sleep in the chair. When Concha nodded, she went and shook her awake by the fat shoulder. Did Hood make love to anyone in those old days? They're hot at 16. He never. Oh, no. You didn't serve the father and the sons? Whom did he love? Nobody. He loved the deer. He's only a boy, and he go hunting. Pharaoh whispered from the throat, I wish to God, you brown slug, that I had been you, to scrape the mud from his boots when he came in from hunting, or Ilaria Akana cooking him little cakes in the oak smoke. In the white dawns, when the light shakes like water in a cup and the hills are foam. For now, who knows what will happen? Oh, sleep, cover your head with the blanket. Nothing has changed. She went about the room and rested in her chair. The snoring rhythm took her mind captive again, and in a snatch of sleep she dreamed that Michael had stolen her lion skin, the one that Hood had given her, and wore it in the hills and was shot for a lion. Her dead body was found wrapped in the skin. There was more, but this was remembered. Perhaps the minds that slept in the house were wrought to dream of death by knowledge of the old man's ebbing. Hood Cawdor dreamed also of a dead body. He seemed a child. At first he dreamed that it was his father lay dead in the house. But afterwards his father held him by the hand without a break in the dream. They looked through a door into the room in which his mother lay dead. There an old woman servant, who had now been gone these many years, prepared his mother's body for burial. She was washing the naked corpse. Madrastra. He awoke and lay in the dark, gathering his adult mind, assuring himself the dream grew from no memory. He remembered his mother living, nothing of seeing her dead. Yes, of the burial a little, the oak on the hill, and the red earth. His thought of the grave calmed him so that he was falling asleep. But Farah remained awake after her dream. How could one drive a wedge between the father and the son? There was not now any affection. But Hood was loyal, or afraid. They had quarreled the time before. The snatch of sleep had cleared her mind. She heard the snoring rhythm, surely a little slower and a little slower. Then one of the old hands drew toward the breast. The breathing failed, resumed, but waning to silence. The throat clicked when a breath should have been drawn. A maze of little wrinkles that seemed to express surprised amusement played from the hollow eye pits into the beard. And that's the end of section 5. Goodbye, bruv. Goodbye.